Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today is Tuesday, so that means we are going to be breaking down the waiver wire, the top players to add. We're going to be doing by position. We're going to be talking redraft. We're going to be talking dynasty. And then we're also going to be talking my new favorite category, if you want, the meh category, the players that, people are going to be suggesting you add, but I don't really care. I mean, you could add them if you want, but not my cup of tea. And we'll talk about that, of course, as well. So go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And I just want to say good morning to everyone here in the chat. Our fearless producer, Dustin, Donald, Mark, Chef, Lucas, Alex, and Toronto. Thank you all so much for tuning in this morning. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you for listening as well. Again, guys, the podcast can be found via the link in the description if you just feel like listening instead of looking. Now, we've got some big news starting this morning off. So normally on the waiver show, we just go straight into the waivers, but Shane Waldron is being relieved of his offensive coordinator duties in Chicago. The nice way to put it, he is being fired. No longer will be the offensive coordinator. They're having their pass game coordinator, I believe Thomas Brown, take over as the OC. We'll see what that means, right? We don't necessarily know how Thomas Brown is going to be as a coordinator, but we do know that he's going to be an upgrade from Shane Waldron. This was always the fear, right? We talked about it all offseason, how we were worried about Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus, for that matter, and how they might affect the Chicago Bears offense. Now with a new coordinator, hopefully it helps, especially in terms of the receiving game, right? We know that Shane Waldron's offense in general is not conducive to wide receiver success. So to see him gone, maybe we could see more spike weeks from at least one of these players instead of a weird amalgamation of points going randomly around. Generally, just what we see with the monkey coming off the back is just a fired up team, and they kind of just go back to, just playing ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears look a little bit better this week, even without much time getting this new system in. They just go out there to play ball. Look for Rome Odunze to become an even bigger part. I think that would, that's one thing that I would be looking towards with a new coordinator change, is the fact that they're probably going to be trying to build around their youth, especially now that the season is kind of lost. So I think they're probably going to spend the second half of the season really focused on trying to develop Caleb Williams and, to another point, Rome Odunze. So I am pretty excited about this move. This was something we predicted would happen all offseason, right? Shane Waldron, just unfortunately, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but not a great coordinator. Just simply not. So shout out to the Bears. And that's that, right? We'll see how this means. Basically, we'll put it at this. It's good news. More than likely, this is good news. The offense should look a little bit better. Now we just need Matt Eberflus to be fired as well. But the way things seem, it seems that that's more than likely going to be an end-of-season move. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the actual reason you're here today, and that is, of course, the waiver wire. So this is the first week. It took me 11 weeks. So Dustin may be happy here for his timestamp duties, but it took me 11 weeks. But we're finally here doing it by position. I've just kind of been going in order of rostership, which I still did, but in terms of position this week, which I just think kind of makes it a little bit easier. You can kind of perk up your ears when a position you're needing we start talking about. So we'll start at quarterback. The quarterbacks you want to be adding, really in single QB, Drake Maye is still just not rostered. Really, he's only rostered in 13% of leagues right now. And in single QB, that's just ridiculous. Even in Superflex, he's definitely rostered in every single Superflex league, but he needs to be rostered in single QB leagues. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now. This is an every week starter. He has a floor and a ceiling. Drake Maye belongs on single QB rosters. You need to add him if he's still available. And that's really the only quarterback we're going to be talking about in single QB that needs to be added. However, Drew Lock, if you're in a deeper single QB league, maybe worth adding. More likely that you're going to be adding him in Superflex leagues, but the Giants have already started to become non-committal on Daniel Jones. They were asked if Daniel Jones is going to be the starter this week, and they wouldn't commit. They said that they're evaluating things right now. So I would expect Drew Lock to start at some point. This is something we've been waiting for all season, right? It's just they will pull the plug on Daniel Jones at some point, if only because of the injury guarantee. So yeah, there's an injury guarantee on Drew Lock or on Daniel Jones' contract. If he gets injured, they have to pay the rest of his contract. So I think they want to avoid that. They're definitely moving on from Danny Dimes next year in the draft. So they're going to pull the plug. So I would like to go ahead and get Drew Lock. More likely is going to be a Superflex ad. But in deeper 1 QB leagues, I don't hate it. I do think that he's at least a little bit of an upgrade from Daniel Jones. Maybe, though, maybe not in fantasy, because at least Daniel Jones was giving you the rushing floor. But I do think that Drew Lock is a better passer. In fact, we know this. He's a better passer. And he should be able to get some good points for Malik Neighbors, just kind of spreading the ball around a little bit better and really just kind of making this offense run normally. So I do think that he will be an upgrade for this offense. In terms of fantasy points, probably about the same, given he doesn't have the rushing floor. But I think the passing floor is pretty good. I'm honestly kind of excited for gunslinger, if you will, Drew Lock. I honestly kind of am. But mostly Superflex. And the other Superflex quarterbacks that we're looking to stash right now is Sam Howell. As the Seahawks, as they get their season closer to ending, I could see them pulling the plug on Geno Smith just to see what they have in Sam Howell. The Cowboys, you want to stash Trey Lance. Cooper Rush just did not look that good. So I would be looking to add Trey Lance and Superflex and potentially single quarterback as well if it's deeper. But I'm not sure if he's actually going to take the starting job. But at least with his athleticism and CeeDee Lamb, he should get some fantasy points. And Michael Penix in Superflex as well. Michael Penix in Superflex. Again, Kirk Cousins, he's playing super well, but at that age with the Achilles, with those weapons, I think that Michael Penix would be pretty sweet if he ever does start. So those are kind of the quarterback ads. I would say we could go ahead and do the if you want for the quarterbacks. And not if you want. Dynasty only, we don't have an if you want quarterback. But Dynasty only, Michael Penix as well, but for single QB. I don't mind throwing Michael Penix on your roster in single QB leagues. Some people may say that that's not a good decision, but I think that Michael Penix is going to be a stud when he eventually takes over in Atlanta. So I just kind of want to go ahead and throw him on there if I have no room. Now, moving back to just the regular waiver wire ads, we're going to go to the running back position. And again, we're going to go in order of availability. So we're going to start with Khalil Herbert. He's the least available. Khalil Herbert, the new backup running back in Cincinnati. Bad debut as a Bengal, but still is the backup. And if anything happens to Chase Brown, he's got massive contingent upside. And I do think we'll probably see him get some goal line short yardage carries eventually as well. Khalil Herbert definitely needs to be added, as well as Trey Benson. Again, just if anything happens to James Conner, Trey Benson should be huge. We saw this week with the Cardinals winning so well, or by so much, Trey Benson actually was able to come in and get some opportunity and look pretty good. Blake Corum, if anything happens to Kyron, he'd be a stud. Roshan Johnson, if anything happens to DeAndre Swift, he would be awesome. Roshan Johnson, all-purpose back. He's not just a between-the-tackles grinder. He can catch passes as well. Marshawn Lloyd, so his practice window was actually opened. He is eligible to return sooner, or very, very soon. Should be back soon. And I do think that he would be ahead of Emmanuel Wilson in the pecking order. If anything happened to Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd should be huge. And lastly, but probably the most important, is Audric Estime. Audric Estime is now the starting running back in Denver and widely available. He just had 14 carries for 53 yards, which isn't anything crazy, but definitely still worth adding. If you're going to get that type of volume, then you need to be rostered and probably flexed here and there. The Chiefs just a tough matchup, and this was his first start. I do think we'll start to see some better performances from Estime. The big thing there is just hopefully that they do completely just take away Javonte. It could be pretty crowded. I don't want to throw a ton of fab at Audric Estime, but I do still want to try to get him. This is why we kind of been talking about adding him for weeks already. You got to stash these backup running backs, especially the rookie ones. Audric Estime, even if we were avoiding the Denver Broncos backfield, now it's kind of becoming clear. Now it shows that they want to try to use Audric Estime, so he needs to be added. Now, in Dynasty only, we want to add Jalen Wright. It just seems that Jalen Wright is not happening. Unfortunately, Jalen Wright it's not falling his way this year. But next year, he should be huge. He should be an amazing running back next year. So I just want to make sure I get Jalen Wright on my roster before next season. as well as Kimani Vidal. It really does look like Kimani Vidal is not happening as well. He's a healthy scratch when Gus Edwards is healthy. And, well, Gus Edwards is healthy, and Kimani Vidal is not getting any action. In fact, even Hassan Haskins is getting action. So Kimani Vidal, I still want to roster in Dynasty. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, I believe both were on one-year contracts. So next year, the backfield should look a little bit different. I mean, they'll probably end up re-signing Dobbins, but still, I want to roster Kimani Vidal in Dynasty leagues. And then the if you want category, the players that are probably going to be added that I don't really think is really worth it, but kind of is. We'll start with Gus Edwards. Yeah, I mean, Gus Edwards is just touchdown dependent. Yeah, he had 10 carries for 55 yards, but that's only 5.5 points. He's not getting any receptions. That's J.K. Dobbins. And the Chargers offense isn't scoring a lot of points in general. The fact that he basically needs a touchdown to even get to 10 points is concerning to me. Gus Edwards is just not a good fantasy running back. He's just not, at least on this offense in the way things are being split. Now, I don't mind adding him in case, J.K. Dobbins goes down or something, then he might get a little bit more volume and opportunity and just points in general. But as of right now, he doesn't have a high ceiling. Even if he has a floor, so he's worth adding. It's just, I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to kind of go out over their skis for Gus Edwards this week, and I'm not really there for it. I think he's going to be totally fine. And as we talk about, we want upside on our bench. If you're not starting these players, there's really no reason having them on your bench unless you're stashing them to eventually start them. And I'm just not sure if Gus Edwards really falls into that category, but we'll see, right? He's definitely worth adding, but it's more of a if you want type of thing. And then Cam Akers and Ty Chandler. So we saw Aaron Jones get hurt. Seems like he is fine, though, so he should be able to play this week. But even then, when he went down, both Cam Akers and Ty Chandler got opportunities. Cam Akers got most of them, but Ty Chandler mixed in too. I don't know. It just seems that it's not really going to be that viable, either one of these, Cam Akers or Ty Chandler, if something happens to Aaron Jones. So I'm not really worried about it. If it's a deeper league and Cam Akers is still available, I don't mind it because it looks like he'll get more carries than Ty Chandler. But still, it's just an area, not really that worth it to me. I would probably be staying away unless it's like a deeper league. You really need the running back help and have the bench space to take a swing. But for the most part, Cam Akers and Ty Chandler, they're just kind of to me. And then while we're on running backs, I do see his question. Would you drop Wright and Vidal, our dynasty running backs, in Scott Fishbowl? Probably, not Wright. Maybe Vidal in Scott Fishbowl, unfortunately. And even then, maybe Wright. But in Scott Fishbowl, it's tough because it is pretty deep. If any of them, I would drop Vidal before Wright, just because Wright is still getting some opportunity and has two pathways. But for the most part, I would probably just roster him unless there's someone that you'd rather add. Now, moving on to the wide receiver position. We'll start with Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas is rostered in 26% of leagues. He needs to be added in more. If he was dropped and still available in your league, get Demario Douglas. He's one of the top ads. He's getting the targets again. He had a rough couple weeks, but that was because of injury. He's had 14 targets over the last 2 weeks. He's killing it now. Jalen Mcmillan is next. He's been hurt and actually did come back this week, but had no snaps. Just remember that before his injury, he had 8 and 7 targets, respectively. They're going into the bye week, so you probably don't even have to put any fab on Jalen Mcmillan, but he's definitely worth adding. I think he'll definitely get a good bit of volume when he does return. Elijah Moore, also, he just has been getting a ton of targets, 21 targets over the last 2 weeks. Hasn't been able to do much with him, but coming out of the bye week, he may be able to. Definitely get Elijah Moore if he's still out there. And should be, he was dropped a lot of leagues because of the bye week. And those are the only wide receivers I'm actually looking to add: Jalen McMillan, Demario Douglas, and Elijah Moore. In Dynasty, I would be looking to add Jalen Polk, Jordan Whittington, Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, and Luke McCaffrey. Why is Jalen Polk only a Dynasty ad? Well, I just don't think it's going to happen this season. I know he finally got that touchdown, but he's not playing well. He's just not. And so I would rather add him in Dynasty and look for next year. Jordan Whittington finally returned this week, but got no volume. Just seems that he's more of a Dynasty play. But even then, should still be good over his career. I like Jordan Whittington a lot. Troy Franklin, he had those big couple weeks, right? But unfortunately, has kind of gone back down. Cortland Sutton has kind of been unlocked a bit in this offense. So it looks like Troy Franklin's not really going to get the volume that I wanted him to get. But in Dynasty, he is definitely going to develop into a player that we want. So I want to go ahead and add Troy Franklin in Dynasty. Roman Wilson, injured all year, but you're going to wish you had him. He's going to be a stud when he does play. And Luke McCaffrey, he's been kind of here or there. He's popped off here or there, had a touchdown at one point this year. Is the slot receiver, but he was a developmental prospect. But they used that third-round pick on him for a reason. He has a lot of athleticism, looked good at the Senior Bowl. I like Luke McCaffrey a lot. I think he will develop into a good receiver, just not this season. So I'm really only looking to add him in Dynasty. And then the if you want category, there's a lot of them. This is what the wide receiver position kind of fills this. So really, I just like to say when you're adding these wide receivers, only do it if you're going to play them. Right? Or you just need wide receiver help, I guess. But these, for the most part, are going to be roster cloggers. You don't really know when you're going to want to start them, And even if you do know, they're probably going to end up not getting you that many points to begin with. So these are just if you want, if you need, essentially. We'll start with Adam Thielen. He's probably going to return this week. Panthers offense looking a little bit better. Bryce Young liked him a lot last year. I'm sure that connection is still there. So if you want Adam Thielen, you can get him now. Mike Williams is another one. Mike Williams did score that touchdown, got the game winner. Will probably be a good player for the Steelers team, but he's going to be boomer bust. And boomer bust is just frustrating. So unless you have the roster space for that, I'm not really looking to add him, but you can. It's not these are not detrimental ads. They're just ads. You know what I mean? Alec Pierce, same thing, just boomer bust. Yeah, some weeks he goes crazy, but for the most part, he doesn't, right? 16 points this week, but then 5, 1, 2, 0, and then 20. So yeah, he has those big weeks, but it's just frustrating. You never really know when they come. I would rather just leave him on the wire. But if you need a boomer bust wide receiver, you've got the room for it. I don't mind it. And Adonai Mitchell. In Dynasty as well, I'm looking to add Adonai Mitchell for sure. But I wanted to throw him in the if you want as well, because I think he's worth adding in seasonal for certain rosters. Probably also more boomer bust, but we talked about him earlier this season. That I do believe the Colts will try to get him the ball more throughout the end of the season, and that's what we're seeing. He just had 6 targets, brought in all 6 for 71 yards. I think they do want to develop him. I think they do want to make him a bigger piece of this offense. And as long as Michael Pittman is out, Adonai Mitchell should be big. So I do want to add him. It's just more of a if you want. In Dynasty, we're definitely looking to get him. In redraft, it's take it by your roster basis. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, another boomer bust option. If you want a boomer bust option, you've got the heart for it, you could get Marcus Valdes-Scantling. But I doubt he has another 3-reception, 109-yard, 2-touchdown game. So I'm probably going to leave him. But, there is no one in New Orleans. So, the case is there that he could do this again. And lastly, John Mechie. He just had his best game of his career, 74 yards and a touchdown off of 5 receptions. Outproduced Tank Dell, but he is still below people on the depth chart. Nico Collins is expected to return this week, so I just don't think John Mechie is ever really going to get that much volume. If you're in a deeper league and you want to, sure, but for the most part, I would probably be leaving John Mechie on the waiver wire. And the tight end position. We've got 2 that we're definitely adding, and that is Jatavion Sanders and Theo Johnson. We've been talking about them for weeks. They're young, athletic tight ends on bad offenses that pass the ball a lot. With extreme athletic upside. They've been doing pretty decently over the last few weeks. Theo Johnson in particular has had 5 targets in 3 out of the last 6 games, 6 targets in back-to-back games. Jatavion Sanders has had 5 targets in 4 out of the last 6 games and just scored a touchdown, 87 yards before that off 4 receptions. Both of these tight ends are killing it, need to be rostered. I like them a lot in both Dynasty and in redraft, especially deeper leagues. In redraft, I think that they're worth rostering. If you want, you can add Noah Fant. He's been dropped in a lot of leagues. He does get volume, but DK Metcalf is going to return soon. And it just seems that Noah Fant's targets in particular aren't that high value. He hasn't had a single 10-point game yet. He's had a couple 8, 9-pointers, but no touchdowns. Only 3 games over 50 yards. It's just to me. But, you take what you could get at tight end. If Noah Fant's out there, It is an offense that throws the ball a lot. He could have a big game at some point. But to me, he's an eh. And a dynasty, we're just looking to add Ben-Sinnott. As much as we love Theo Johnson and Jatavion Sanders, we really love Ben-Sinnott. I think he's going to be a stud. He's just right now behind Zach Ertz for the time being, so we're only looking to add him in dynasty. And that should do it for this week's waiver show. I mean, it's at this point, it's getting kind of thin. We already know the player. It's, at this point, it's really the same players every week that we got to be stashing. But let's go ahead and hop into the chat, see if we have any questions. Or actually, it looks like we have a breaking news story. So we'll talk about this real quick. Dak is having season-ending surgery. This was the expectation. So this just kind of gives a little bit more. You should probably add Trey Lance, in Superflex and maybe deeper single QB leagues just in case. Cooper Rush did not look that good. I wouldn't be surprised if they just want to see what they have in Trey Lance. So keep an eye on him. But Dak Prescott done for the year, unfortunately. And I am curious to see how this affects his career as a whole, just because this was a pretty severe injury and he is up there in age. I know they just extended him, but it is definitely a concerning one. The Cowboys in a very rough situation right now. Done for the season. Dak Prescott. Pip, shut up, dude. What's your deal? Pip is going crazy this morning. Sorry, everyone. Let's answer some questions. Would you trade Nico for Gibbs? Yes. Especially in Dynasty. But yes. Would you trade Tyreek Hill for DK Metcalf? I'm going to say no. I think I like Tyreek Hill still. Big fade heading into the year, as everyone knows. He was like my biggest fade, bust of the year candidate at the wide receiver position. But I think the value is right now. Tua's back. He finally found the end zone last night. I think that Tyreek is fine. Brady to the Cowboys? Dude, if only. That would be awesome. Would you stream Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson this week? I actually don't know the matchups off the top of my head, but off the top of my head, Jameis Winston. Let's see. Long-term view of Jalen Waddle, fine. This is just one of those players that, I want him. I do kind of want him in Dynasty, but I also feel like his value is a little high. If you ask me, I wish he could play a game. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like every game he goes out there, he plays a quarter, gets hurt, misses a quarter, comes back out, and is less than 100%. He gets random big plays, but I don't know. Just seems that he's always kind of going to be a little bit of a beta on this offense. And I think even if Tyreek's gone, they'll just bring someone else in. So it's a little bit of, I'm both buying and selling depending on what I could get and what the price is. I think he's good. And that's really about it. I don't think he's going to be like great or like a league winning asset really at any point. I also hope we see Anthony Richardson this week. We should not be looking at Joe Flacco right now. Would you trade Darnold and Garrett Wilson and DJ Moore for Jaden Daniels, Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison? Yes, I would. What draft capital should I offer for Mixon? I would start with a second and like an asset, second plus. But if you have to give a first, I wouldn't mind it. Would you trade Pollard for Ridley or Ladd? I would hold Pollard. Aaron Jones and Kelsey for Rome Odunze in Dynasty? Yeah, actually, getting Rome Odunze in Dynasty I think is nice. Now, that's kind of a lot. I would maybe see if you could get a little bit plus, Rome Odunze plus, just because these are two kind of big seasonal assets right there. But you're getting an awesome Dynasty asset. I don't think it's that far off. So I would do it if they can't add anything, but I would try to squeeze a little juice. You should definitely start Lamar over Russ. How do I feel about Devon Vele? I think he's fine. I still like Troy Franklin more, but it seems that Devon LA is pretty solid. Thoughts on Tyrone Tracy and his trade value for a wide receiver? I would honestly just hold on to Tyrone Tracy, man. I wouldn't really look to move on from him. I think he's a stud. Yeah, the Chiefs defense is worth keeping. They'll find a way to get points. The time to bench DJ Moore. I would not bench him now that they've got a new coordinator. All right. That should do it, everyone. Thank you so much as always. Make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. I hope you all have a terrific Tuesday and a wonderful rest of your week. We'll be back tomorrow for some more Wake and Take at 10 a.m. Eastern here on the Player Profiler YouTube. Again, have a wonderful day and a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.